The Scottish National Party is warning the government that it could withdraw from UK institutions, including the House of Commons, if the UK government continues to block a second Scottish independence referendum. Well, the senior SNP MP, Pete Wishart, says the party could try to seek support from the European Union and the international community to sanction a fresh vote. And Pete Wishart joins us now. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. You're certainly making your voice heard in the House of Commons, the SNP. Are you really serious about withdrawing?
Absolutely not. I mean, there's no way on earth that we would leave our constituents at the mercy of the Westminster Tories. But what's happening, Adam, is that we're now seeing sustained majority support for independence. The last opinion poll shows 54% of Scottish people now want to be an independent nation. Combined with that, the SNP now look likely, if not possible, to win the next Holyrood election with a majority, replicating the conditions that we had in 2011 when the last
count your chickens,
referendum was triggered. Exactly. But all the opinion polls just now are indicating that it's possible, if not likely, that we will win the next Holyrood election with a clear majority. So that replicates the conditions that triggered the last independence referendum. Now, what we want to do is to have that referendum in participation with the United Kingdom, roughly along the same lines as we had last time round. But it seems this time round that the UK are not feeling all that obliged to participate in that, and what they're continually, consistently saying to us is no. But we have obligations to the Scottish people. If we're elected on an overwhelming mandate to secure an independence referendum, then we've got to deliver that. We've got a responsibility to ensure that happens. So what I've tried to design is a way that we get round this Westminster no. If they've discharged their obligations as a partner in the union, then we've got to find another way to ensure that the Scottish people get what they actually voted for. So I've suggested a way where we include the European Union. And as a sub-state of the United Kingdom just now, we look to see if we could start some sort of accession process to rejoin the EU, that we involve them in this democratic choice about our future by having an independence referendum designed in Scotland with their support and participation. And I've also started to talk about we've got to start to act a little bit more like that independent nation and maybe start informally adopting some of the responsibilities currently exercised at Westminster and looking to withdraw from some of the institutions of the UK. And the one example I gave, and I think it's a good one, is we should maybe be looking at some of the intergovernmental machinery, things like the Joint Ministerial Council and its subcommittees, and that would be a good place to start. But we've got to get beyond this, Adam, that the UK government can't say no to the majority of Scottish people. I just want to be
clear. Are you really saying that the test is going to be the next Holyrood election and that if you get a majority, then you will consider that that is a clear mandate for having another referendum? Because it used to be that you wanted another referendum now.
Yes, I mean, there's not going to be an opportunity because of COVID and all the other related issues. It does look very unlikely there will be the possibility of a referendum before then. So Holyrood is the next big test. And as I've said, things look very positive about that. There is a general change in Scotland. There was all these no voters from 2014 who voted to remain in the European Union who are joining us in droves. There are people looking at Boris Johnson's leadership and his assertion that he could just say no to Scotland who are joining us too. And we're now at a tipping point, an optimum time for us to exercise this choice. We have to decide this, and we cannot be held back by the United Kingdom and their intransigence and their insistence in just saying no. We've got to get beyond that.
I've got to put it to you that as long as Boris Johnson is Prime Minister, you can pretty much dream on. I mean, this is a direct quote of what he said at Prime Minister's Question Time yesterday. There is no such thing as a border between England and Scotland.
I mean, there's no border between Boris Johnson and reality. It's just barking. Scotland is a constitutional geographical entity with clear and defined borders. And this is a difficult we've got. I mean, I think for Boris Johnson and the Westminster Tories, there's two ways I think they could look at this. One, they can engage with a majority mandate from the Scottish people as expressed at the next Holyrood election, and they join with us and put the case for the union, tell us why we should remain in Brexit Britain. Or it's a long, drawn-out process which will do nobody any good whatsoever, which will result in the same thing, which will be us having a choice about our future.
Nicola Sturgeon's also been on Twitter this morning tweeting a map of COVID cases and talking up Scotland at the expense of England. Can you see the possibility, for example, that if the UK government opens up to travel from abroad, gets rid of quarantine, that Scotland wouldn't?
But what we've got to do, and I think what we've done through all of this, is exercise caution and take the decisions in the public health interests of Scotland. If there is a clinical and medical case for us to look at some of these issues about cross-border traffic, then it's incumbent upon us to do that. There's no current plans and arrangements at all to have any sort of thing like a border coming in between Scotland and England. But if there's a medical and clinical case for that, it's incumbent upon any administration to look at that, to ensure that they look after the safety of the people who live in that country primarily above everything else. And Boris Johnson ridiculously trying to politicise and constitutionalise this yesterday was just singularly absurd. And I'll tell you something, Adam, that type of remark by the Prime Minister just drives more and more people to the cause of Scottish independence. So in some regards, I say, keep going, Boris, because you're a greatest recruiting sergeant that we've got.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. This is Sky News.